Hello, today's daily reading comes from the book of the Apocrypha. We are continuing with our reading in chapter 49, starting at verse 25 of the book of Jasher, and it reads reads as follows. And the king commanded that all those that played upon timbrels, harps, and other musical instruments should go out with Joseph, 1,000 timbrels, 1,000 mekaholoth, and 1,000 nabalim went after him, and 5,000 men with drawn swords glittering in their hands, and they went marching and playing before Joseph, and 20,000 of the great men of the king, girt with girdles of skin covered with gold, marched at the right hand of Joseph, and 20,000 at his left. And all the women and damsels went upon the roofs or stood in the streets, playing and rejoicing at Joseph, and gazed at the appearance of Joseph and at his beauty. And the king's people went before him and behind him, perfuming the road with frankincense and with cassia and with all sort of fine perfume, and scattered myrrh and aloes along the road. And 20 men proclaimed these words before him throughout the land in a loud voice: Do you see this man whom the king has chosen to be his second? All the affairs of government will be regulated by him, and he that transgressed his orders or that does not bow down before him to the ground will die, for he rebels against the king and his second. And when the heralds had ceased proclaiming, all the people of Egypt bowed down to the ground before Joseph and said, May the king live, also may second live. And all the inhabitants of Egypt bowed down along the road, and when the heralds approached them, they bowed down, and they rejoiced with all sorts of timbrels, Mechol and Nebal, before Joseph. And Joseph upon his horse lifted up his eyes to heaven and called out and said, He raises the poor man from the dust, he lifts up the needy from the dunghill. O Lord of hosts, happy is the man who trusts in you. And Joseph passed throughout the land of Egypt with Pharaoh's servants and officers, and they showed him the whole land of Egypt and all the king's treasures. And Joseph returned and came on that day before Pharaoh, and the king gave unto Joseph a possession in the land of Egypt, a possession of fields and vineyards, and the king gave unto Joseph 3,000 talents of silver, and 1,000 talents of gold, and onyx stones, and bdellium, and many gifts. And on the next day the king commanded all the people of Egypt to bring unto Joseph offerings and gifts, and that he that violated the command of the king should die. And they made a high place in the street of the city, and they spread out garments there. And whoever brought anything to Joseph put it into the high place. And all the people of Egypt cast something into the high place. One man a golden earring, and the other rings and earrings, and different vessels of gold and silver work, and onyx stones and bdellium did he cast upon the high place. Everyone gave something of what he possessed. And Joseph took all these and placed them in his treasuries. And all the officers and nobles belonging to the king exalted Joseph, and they gave him many gifts, seeing that the king had chosen him to be his second. And the king sent to Potiphar, the son of Ahiram, priest of On, and he took his young daughter Osnath and gave her unto Joseph for a wife. And the damsel was very comely, a virgin, one whom man had not known, and Joseph took her for a wife. And the king said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and beside you none will dare to lift up his hand or his foot to regulate my people throughout the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh. And Joseph went out from before the king, and he became the king's second in Egypt. And the king gave Joseph 100 servants to attend him in his house. And Joseph also sent and purchased many servants, and they remained in the house of Joseph. Joseph then built for himself a very magnificent house, like unto the houses of kings, before the court of the king's palace. And he made in the house a large temple, very elegant in appearance and convenient for his residence. 3 years was Joseph in erecting his house. And Joseph made unto himself a very elegant throne of abundance of gold and silver, and he covered it with onyx stones and bdellium, and he made upon it the likeness of the whole land of Egypt, and the likeness of the river of Egypt that waters the whole land of Egypt. And Joseph sat securely upon his throne in his house, and the Lord increased Joseph's wisdom. And all the inhabitants of Egypt and Pharaoh's servants and his princes loved Joseph exceedingly, for this thing was from the Lord to Joseph. And Joseph had an army that made war, going out in hosts and troops to the number of 40,600 men, capable of bearing arms to assist the king and Joseph against the enemy, besides the king's officers and his servants and inhabitants of Egypt without number. And Joseph gave unto his mighty men and to all his host shields and javelins and caps and coats of mail and stones for slinging. Amen.